It's Gloria Hollins. I am the administrative assistant here at Real Women in Trucking, and we're continuing with our board member interview series. Today, I have the fortune of sitting with the lovely Miss Angela Baum. Miss Baum, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm so glad to have you here. So, tell me about yourself.
Let's see, this is going to be my 7th year as a truck driver, and I am a team truck driver. So I drive with my husband, and pretty much our truck is rolling 24/7.
Wow.
Yeah.
24/7. So do you guys ever get to be at home or?
Actually, we are kind of choosing right now to put our house on the market, and we're going to live out on the road full time because as it is right now, we only get home about once every 6 weeks. So we're like, let's just sell everything and enjoy being out on the road.
Okay, so you guys get to live the nomad life. I love that. So yes. We know that you've been a team driver for 7 years, and it's you and your husband. So tell me about your journey into trucking.
Actually, it was kind of a funny story. My husband and I had just gotten married, and I wasn't used to the trucking lifestyle. I didn't know anything about trucking, and he was gone all the time, and I hated it. And so his boss said, well, your kids are grown. Why don't you have your wife go to CDL school and she can get her license and come out here with you? And I was like, I never really thought about that. So at the age of 45, I went to CDL school.
Oh, wow.
And then he was my trainer for 6 months. So that was pretty interesting.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. So your husband was your trainer. Now, that's a new one that I haven't heard before. What was it like having your husband as your trainer?
The hardest part is we're both stubborn and bullheaded. So I think we fought pretty hard the first year because I don't know, the communication style was bad. Now we've got it down to a rhythm.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. So do you feel comfortable disclosing what kind of freight you haul?
Yeah, right now we're hauling mainly Department of Defense. So a lot of hazmat loads, a lot of weapons and stuff like that. So we have all of our clearances, which is nice, which allows us to get onto any of the government or military sites.
Okay. Now, are you guys owner operators or are you attached to a carrier?
We're attached to a carrier.
Okay. All right. And what's it like being attached to a carrier? Because I know that the owner operator model is one thing, but the carrier model is something a little bit different. Everybody that I've kind of talked to has been more of an owner operator up to this point. So tell me what it's like to be attached to a carrier.
Well, luckily the carrier that we are attached to, we kind of live like an owner operator where they really don't care what we do as long as we're making them money. So that's the nice part about it. And we have thought about becoming owner operators, but the fuel cost and maintenance costs is kind of a scary task. So it's nice not having those worries, especially, if something breaks down, you just call the boss and have the boss deal with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, and so you're on the road pretty much most of the year. I'll say 40 weeks out of the year?
Yeah, easy.
Okay. And so being on the road 40 weeks out of the year, you guys see a lot of truck stops.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys also see a lot of truck parking and see a lot of trucking issues. Yes. What are you seeing out there on the road?
Truck parking, I think, is one of the biggest things. Unless you are doing a reserved spot like earlier in the day, sometimes after 4 p.m. trying to find an open trucking space in any of the rest areas or truck stops, almost impossible. Then you'll start seeing the truck drivers having to park on the sides of the roads, on ramps, off ramps. So the parking is a real issue. And then the other thing is, I think since the height of COVID, the prices have really increased at the truck stops, tremendously so since COVID. Half the time the restaurants aren't open or any of the facilities, like say barbershops not open, so it's like half the time we don't know if when we pull in and we're super tired and we've been driving for 11 hours, whether or not the restaurant's even open for us. And it seems to happen a lot.
So, okay. So the rising prices, that's something that so I'm just a regular everyday consumer. I did not come from the trucking world, but I do buy groceries and I do buy gas. Those are two things that I have to purchase. And I think that your experience is consistent with what the general public is feeling, those ridiculously like my grocery budget has now needed to stretch triple because
Yeah.
the prices have essentially tripled. So I can only imagine, like, gas station and truck stop food is already expensive.
Yes.
And so now it's just ridiculous. And I can only imagine, how do you guys make that work?
We're pretty lucky because we actually have a lot of appliances on our truck. So I try to get groceries once a week from Walmart. That way, on those times where, because the other issue is a lot of the restaurants close like 5, 6 o'clock at night. Well, my husband and I don't usually swap till 8 or 9 o'clock. So we know that 99.9% of the chance by the time we swap, nothing's going to be open. So thank goodness we do carry groceries so that way I can make him something before we swap. Otherwise, he'd go hungry.
Oh, goodness. So I never get to ask this, and I want to ask because I'm coming from a consumer. I don't live on a truck. I've seen trucks. I think they're cool. I'm the pull the horn girl. But what's it like having to prepare your meals on a truck? Is there like a knack to it? Is it like camping? How does that work?
It's tough right now because the truck that we have is kind of small. We're actually upgrading to a much bigger truck next week, but it's like trying to cook in such a confined space. And then I have 2 dogs on my truck and my husband. So it's like I'm sitting there trying to cook and I'm feeling so confined. But yeah, it's nice. And then there's actually a lot of TikTok videos where other truckers are giving each other ideas of what kind of recipes we can cook in our truck. Because, it's like we have a tight space and only a limited type of appliances like electric skillet or Instapot or something. So it's kind of fun.
Okay. And then can you refrigerate, or you don't have refrigeration?
Yes, I have a refrigerator and freezer. Small one, but yes.
Oh, awesome. That makes that's got to make life a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more easy. That's wonderful. Maybe when we finish this interview, I'll tell you a couple of my secret Instapot recipes.
All right.
I love to cook.
Me too.
What do you love most about your job?
I would say I think I love being a woman out here as far as in the trucking community, because a lot of times, well, just last week, as a matter of fact, the coolest thing happened to me. I was driving down the road and this couple who was probably in their mid-30s was next to me, but the lady was in the passenger seat and she rolled down her window and she's honking and honking. I look over and she's like, "You go, girl," because she was just so proud of seeing a female trucker and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so awesome." But I think the fact that I'm an older woman and I really haven't been out here for a long period of time, so I always say I'm a newbie, I'm still learning. And I think the truckers appreciate that because, I'll ask truckers for, "Hey, what would I do in this situation?" Or just advice. I'm always want to learn. So I feel like I'm always learning every single day. And when I pull into a truck stop and I'm behind the wheel and I'm a female, I just feel like, some of the guys just look at us like, "Whoa, that's so cool." It's kind of neat.
Awesome. So your experience with being a female trucker, because there's a spectrum. Some people have really great experiences. Some people have really horrendously bad experiences. But where on the spectrum does your experience fall?
I would say when I first started out, I was very naive. I was not, I'll be honest with you, I didn't understand the trucking lifestyle. I feel like I was kind of thrown into it and didn't understand it. I didn't understand the safety aspect as far as keeping yourself safe, especially in a truck stop or a rest area. And I was attacked early on when I first started trucking. And I was attacked in a rest area. So now it's like I always say I keep my head on my swivel, never keep my head in my phone when I'm walking around, and I'm very aware of my surroundings, because unfortunately a lot of us women out here have to learn the hard way, whether it be somebody making a pass at you or being aggressive. A lot of times there's a lot of drivers that are aggressive with us in the truck stops, not because they're trying to be like sexually aggressive. It's just that they don't think we belong out here. So a lot of times you'll get those truckers who just, want to kind of pull their weight around like, "You women don't belong out here." So you got to develop some tough skin.
Absolutely. Do you feel comfortable talking about the attack that you experienced?
Sure.
Can you tell me what happened?
I believe I'd only been out here for maybe 6 months, and we had stopped at a rest area up in Wyoming, and it was in the middle of the night. It was probably 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'd actually woke up. I'm like, "Hey, hon, I got to go to the bathroom." He's like, "No problem. We'll pull into a rest area." So obviously he had to park down a little bit and I had to walk in the middle of the night up to the rest area. Well, it was a really weird rest area. So I walk in there, I go to the bathroom, and as I'm coming out, there's a homeless man inside the women's restroom, and he's got his arms out like this and won't let me pass through. And I was like, sir, I need to get out there. I said, my husband's waiting on me. And he just would not move his arms. So I tried to go underneath his arms, and that's when he grabbed me and shoved me against the wall. And he tried to get pretty aggressive with me. Finally, I was able to get myself out, went and told my husband what happened, and he went in there. By the time he got into the restroom, the guy was already gone.
Goodness.
And so that was probably 6 months into my trucking career.
Wow. So from what I'm learning, it seems like somehow when you're partnered with your husband and you guys do the team driving model, other women that I've spoken to that are on the board that have that same situation, they don't feel like they experience as much. So it's very shocking to me. Well, it's not shocking, because unfortunately we're women and the world is just a dangerous place. I don't understand why that is, but that's just the reality of things.
Yes.
But do you think, no, I'm not going to ask that question, because there's nothing you could have done differently, in that particular situation. And I don't want to take on a situation where I feel as though I'm blaming you for what happened, right, because I'm not at all. Let me just say, like, guys, y'all got to learn to keep your hands and other body parts to yourselves, because that's not cool.
Yes.
Like, we're people. So we're going to take this and we're going to segue over into a conversation about real women in trucking, because real women in trucking wants to address these issues, like the parking, absolutely, the fact that your husband had to park so far away and you were forced to walk. Like, that situation could be mitigated with better parking, better lighting, better security, or cameras or something at these rest areas, because I understand that you guys can't just stop anywhere. So tell me, first of all, how did you get aligned with Real Women in Trucking?
Actually, it's kind of a funny story. Somebody nominated me 2 years ago for Queen of the Road Award. And I didn't actually know that somebody had nominated me until they contacted me. And then I wound up being one of the winners. So I wound up going to Vegas and getting my crown. And that's how I got involved with Real Women in Trucking.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you were a Queen of the Road, but what made you stay?
Well, I had known about Real Women in Trucking for a while. So I'd been following them. I've been following Desiree and Jess, and so I was very familiar with them, and I was very interested in what they were trying to do in the industry. And so then when I got nominated, of course, well, then I really wanted to dive in, and I got to meet all the members, and it was just like, I just felt like there's finally something out there making a huge difference, or trying to make a huge difference in the trucking community, so that we make it safer and we encourage more women to get their CDL and to come out here, because we need more female truckers out here.
We do, especially with that. You're calling it a trucker shortage. It's not a trucker shortage. As you guys teach me so much all the time. So as you guys are teaching me, it's not an actual trucker shortage. But we definitely do need to see women, depending on who's reporting and what report you're reading. I read a report from another trucking group who shall remain nameless, and they're reporting about 13% of the industry is women. However, when I do actual labor statistics, that statistic varies, and it's usually well under 10%.
Yes, that's all I've ever seen too.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But with that being said, so we are going to see more women coming into the trucking industry, because there's a lot of things that are brewing that are going to make it very attractive for companies to get women to come in.
Yes.
So you have now been a female trucker for 7 years. That makes you seasoned.
Yeah.
You're still a newbie, but you're a seasoned newbie. What advice do you have for young women coming into trucking?
Um, you got to be flexible, number one, because in trucking, everything changes. I mean, your load can cancel. You may get to your pickup and have to sit there and wait forever. So flexibility is number one. Number two, you got to always be watching for your safety, especially as a female out here. You just got to make sure that you always have your head on the swivel. Don't keep your head in your phone. And just be aware of your surroundings at all times and where you're going. And 99.9% of the time, the gentlemen that are out here are the most helpful people and they're really out here, looking out for your well-being. So it's not like I think a lot of people try to make it out on social media. The truckers out here are very nice to us and try to help us out.
Okay. All right. So, I've never gotten to ask this, or I've never thought to ask this question. Is your husband also a supporter of Real Women in Trucking?
Very much so. I actually was shocked when I told him how interested I was after I had won the award about possibly working with Real Women in Trucking. He's like been my biggest cheerleader. He's like, yeah, I think you could make such a difference. So I'm like, okay, thank you. And so, yeah, he's very encouraging.
Absolutely. And so I want to encourage the audience to understand that while Real Women in Trucking focuses on women, and that the experiences that they have, the idea is to improve trucking for everybody. So that's not just men, that's not just women, that's not just anybody who is non-binary or identifies however you choose to identify. It is for truckers as a whole. So with that being said, while men can't be members, you can be supporters. So I encourage you, if you are a team driving male, and your spouse, girlfriend, partner, whatever, is a trucker with you, steer her over to us, and
Yes.
also bring yourself. Donations, we take those on the website at www.realwomenintrucking.org. You can also follow us on social media at Real Women in Trucking. Don't forget the real part, because there's only one Real Women in Trucking. And so I want to encourage you guys, as you're hearing this information and as you're watching this series, that guys, we didn't leave you out. Y'all can come too. We want you to come. All right. So we have talked about your experiences as a trucker, and I'm really happy to say that, or I'm really happy to know that while you did have a harrowing experience, it wasn't one of those experiences that has been as horrific as some of the others that I've heard. So I'm happy about that.
Yes.
Not happy that you had that experience. Again, I don't understand why we're violent towards women.
I know.
It makes no sense, but this is, again, it's the world we live in. And until someone, gets it together, that's just going to be what it is. Yeah. So I'm really, really happy, that one, your husband was with you, and able to, at least try to do something, and I'm glad that you have your husband with you on the road, because I feel like my understanding is having a male with you kind of creates a buffer for a lot of what other women experience when they're just out there on their own.
Yeah, and that's very true.
Okay. And I want to make sure that I make that distinction. Not to suggest that in any way you have to have a man with you for safety, but this is why these experiences vary. And I want to create the parallel that when you're viewed as protected, people don't try the things that happen when you are not viewed as protected. Yeah. So I like to do a fun thing, because we talk about heavy stuff, we talk about trucking, but I want to get to know the people that I share the road with. Can you tell me what the most unique load is you've ever hauled?
Yes, actually I can. It was about the height of COVID, and we were running really, really hard, because at that time we were doing the COVID vaccinations and trying, a lot of them were top secret because we'd have to be escorted by police officers. But the one cool one was We had just gotten done doing a COVID vaccination, and we told we had to do a top secret load, and we couldn't even tell our family where we were at. We're like, okay, cool. And it was cross country. So I think we were going East Coast to West Coast. So we get there, and there's over 300 breathing machines that we were events. It was 300 events that we were taking. And the guy told me, he goes, I just want you to know, while you're taking these across country, every one of these events already has a name on it. And there's somebody waiting on these events. He goes, so you are literally saving 300 lives by driving cross country. So we never drove so hard in our whole life, because we knew there was 300 people needing vents. And I don't think we've ever ran so hard in our whole life.
Oh, wow.
I
That
about
had to have been nerve-wracking, but also personally fulfilling.
Yes, because it was like at the height when there were so many people dying. And it's like when he told us that every single one of those events had a name, somebody was already waiting on that. I was like, literally, we felt like we had 300 lives in our hands, and we had to hurry up and get across country because you just didn't know back then.
Right.
But yeah, that was the most fulfilling load I've ever been on. I think we both, my husband and I both bawled.
Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. I'm going to tear up a little bit. I don't know why. You know what? Old age. I'm going to call it old age. Something about turning 40. I want to cry at everything.
I know.
Everything. It's so annoying. Okay, go back in. It's we're past that. People are not needing ventilators, and there's not a ventilator.
Thank God.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Thank God. So with that being said, how do you guys keep yourselves entertained on the road? Now, I know you have the 2 dogs, and I know you have your husband, but you guys swap out. One sleeps while the other one drives, so you're not always awake at the same times to talk to each other. So how do you keep yourselves entertained?
So for me, I like listening to true crime podcasts. I'm a type of person where my mind has to be like up and functioning, and I like anything that's got a mystery. So to me, if I'm listening to something while I'm driving down the road, it makes the time go by so much faster. And then sometimes I'll call my other trucker friends and be like, hey, where are you out in the country today? So usually that's what I do, either talking on the phone with some of my trucking friends, or I'll listen to podcasts.
Okay. And true crime podcasts.
Yes.
Y'all better leave these trucker women alone.
I know. I always tell my husband, I'm like, if we had a reefer, we could throw a few dead bodies in there. He's like, girl, you've been listening to too many podcasts.
And now for one more fun question, because you guys are in close quarters all the time and you work together. How do you guys make your marriage work and be in those close quarters all the time?
We always joke that we feel like we live 2 lives. We have the work life, and we have the husband and wife life. And unfortunately, the work life, like where we're teammates and we're best friends, that tends to show more than the husband wife. That's kind of like, okay, when we have our 34s, we could be sweet and romantic. But I don't know, it just works. It took us almost 2 years to kind of get down to it. But like now, like when we swap and stuff, we try to spend like an hour or 2 together. And sometimes we'll just sit there and sing together to country music going down the road, or reminisce about when we were dating. So it's like, even though we are together all the time, we always try to find, cool things we can talk about. So we're always keeping the conversation flowing.
Awesome. Awesome. That is so great. So now we're going to switch it back, because I have to close on a Real Women in Trucking note. Why is it important for people to support the mission of Real Women in Trucking?
I think Real Women in Trucking, first of all, the issues that we're trying to tackle are important, like you said earlier, not just to women, but to everybody in the trucking community. We're trying to make a real difference when it comes to sexual harassment of all truckers, female, male, everybody. The parking, which is a huge issue, we're trying to make big strides so that we don't have to have truckers being injured or killed because they cannot find safe parking to do their jobs. So I just think that whether you're a trucker, trucker's wife, a trucker's spouse, supporting Real Women in Trucking and the mission and what they're trying to do, can only benefit the trucking community, everybody in it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this actually didn't take as long as I thought it would. This was easy peasy, like lemon squeezy. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the lovely Angela Baum. Miss Angela, do you have any closing words you want to leave us with?
Just be safe out there. Like I said, keep your head on a swivel and enjoy it. There's nothing better than waking up every day and seeing a different view out your windshield. There's nothing better.
Awesome. So guys, this has been another edition in the board member series for Real Women in Trucking. I'm still Gloria Hollins, administrative assistant at Real Women in Trucking, working alongside dynamic ladies like Angie. Before I go, Angie, let me thank you and your husband, not just for delivering vents to people who needed them, but for being cells in the lifeblood of this country. I don't take for granted when I go to the grocery store, or when I go to Mac, or when I go to Sephora, or when I go to Ulta, or when I even go to Walmart, which I try to go there as little as possible. Or even when I buy things from Amazon, I do not take for granted the fact that it's you guys that make these things happen. And as I'm looking at the news and what's coming out with FedEx, again, I have to thank you guys, because I don't go to physical stores as much as possible. But if I do have to go to a physical store, I know that the things that I need will be there because of people like you. So I, as a consumer, am immensely appreciative. I want you to stay safe out there on the road. Drivers, I admonish you, move out of truckers' way. And little kids, if you do this, when you see a trucker, they will pull the horn, and it's a thing that people don't do anymore. And from what I hear, it makes you guys really happy.
Oh, I love it. I wish more people did it.
Absolutely. So guys, we're going to sign off here, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Real Women in Trucking.